So now I'm going to install the Propex heater. There are a few things to be wary about. Firstly, read the manual. Secondly, if you don't know what you're doing with gas, get someone who does to do your work. Anyway, so essentially you have two pipes. This heater draws air in from outside, burns, transfers the heat to the air inside your van, and puts the exhaust out. So it's a good, safe heater because you're not burning something inside your van and therefore using up your oxygen or giving yourself CO2 or carbon monoxide poisoning. To install it, first you've got to put your cables in. There's two little screws on the top. They're star screws, but a small screwdriver will do the job. And you connect them up. There's only two places that can go. You'll figure it out. And then you basically put on your little side brackets, which lifts it off the ground, and you put your two hoses on. You can't shorten, especially the inlet, because it's quite subtle the amount of pressure you're allowed to have. If you put too many kinks in it and bends, your heater won't operate properly. So you've got to be pretty strict with the instructions with your pipes. Can't be any shorter on the inlet, especially. You have two holes going through, and because you put Jubilee clips in here to fix it, you need a bigger hole first before your small hole, which goes through the bottom of your van. So I've basically got those holes in. I know it fits, and I'm just going to put it in and basically screw it down. These are the cables. One cable goes to the thermostat controller, which is amazing. It will basically cycle on overnight, so you'll be able to set your heat, turn it on to heat, and basically it will come on and then go off when your van is warm, and come on and go off. And pretty much the cycle of on and off will depend on how hot you turn it on to be, and how fast your van loses the heat. So therefore probably how cold it is outside and how good your insulation job is. Installing the inlet and outlet pipes. With the kit, you'll get a zip tie and a little clip. So basically the clip, I'm just going to attach to the relevant place on the bodywork. Self-tap and screw, and that's pretty secure. There's two things to know. One, don't have them both tucked up high in a box part of your van, because obviously if it's a still day, then all the exhaust will collect. It'll go in the inlet. I'm separating them out. I'm one over here and the inlet over here. I know it's near the engine exhaust, but you don't really use it while you're driving, so it's not a huge issue. And the exhaust pushes that way. The important thing with this one is you don't have loads of bends in it. Got to be careful, try not to, because it will, in effect, from a fluid dynamics point of view, it will make the pipe as if it's longer, and that will mess with your heater. It will mess with the intake, and your heater won't work properly. So basically, one of the key things is when you've done an install is if your heater's not working, it's not igniting or whatever, or it goes on and then cuts off, there's a good chance you've installed it wrong, but it's an easy fix. So for my gas, I'm going with a Gaslow 11 kilo. I've used this before. You can fit this to the outside of your van, and then you can fill it up in fuel stations throughout Europe. Essentially, the main benefit of using auto gas over just getting like a camping gas bottle is that you can just fill it up in a garage. Now, the problem in Europe is you'll have different bottles for different countries. You can't just swap one out here and bring it back there. So it's a real pain. And if you can fill up a big bottle like this, and you just got a little van conversion, essentially, I mean, this will probably last you up to 6 months of cooking, about €10 to fill it up, or a month of like really going for it with a heater. So basically I have a hole in the van, which will take this, we'll seal it up on the outside, and then we'll install it. Don't seal it all up before you've tested your gas system, because if this joint here needs basically to be redone, you need to be able to undo it all again, and I can guarantee that's a real pain in the ass if you've done it all up. Out of the Gaslow, it goes straight into my regulator. and my regulator will go into my other gas fittings. I'm using the rubber hose, so it will go regulator, it's going to go to a cross piece, and off the cross piece it will go to my gas heater, the Propex. It's going to go to my shower unit, or my little shower, and it's going to go to my cooker. Simple. Everything's going to be done up really nice and tight with Jubilee clips, and it's going to be using proper gas hosing, 8mm internal diameter. The important thing also to know is you've got like an 8-year shelf life. You have to replace the hose every 8 years, which is fine for now because 8 years is a problem for future Nathan. The other thing you want to put on your gas threads or anything you're threading or having threads, so that will go on your tank and also on your connected to the door, is some PTFE tape. So as an example, as you see, this is a thread and it turns this way. So to put the PTFE tape on, I will go the same way as the thread and I'll just give it a few wraps. Reasonably tight. And now, as you see, we've got the end, and then when we screw the fitting on, it's not curling up the end of the thread. Now, when you tighten gas fittings, you don't want to go too crazy. If you tighten them too much, it will deform the seals, and your end result will be a bust gas seal. I should probably do it. Hopefully, this is leak proof. When you put it on the PTFE tape, don't go over the kind of compression fitting at the end. It must only be on the thread. Don't let it hang in because that will mess up your seal. The other thing is getting your rubber hose on and fixing your rubber hose. So first you have your rubber hose, secondly Jubilee clip, because we're going to do it up nice and tight. It's quite hard to get these on, especially near the end. So one way to make this easier, so you're not like fighting all day to do all your fittings, especially when it's like a short bit or there's something else attached to it. You can just dip your pipe for a few seconds into the hot water. It will soften it up and it's a lot easier to get on. Lovely job. Slide up the Jubilee clip and we can make it nice and tight. And when you've done this, it's literally going nowhere. Solid. So this is going to go on the outside of the van. This screws on the other side and will go all the way to the thinness of your metal sheet. To cut the hole, I'm going to use a hole cutter. This one is a tiny bit bigger than you want, but because it comes on the other side and there's a nice little ridge inside, we can fill it up with sealant and I'm not too worried about it. The first thing I do, however, is I'm just going to drill a hole where I want it from this side and I'll cut it from the outside in. The ideal would have been to have these all close together, but just the place where my water tank is and the size of the tank, and anyway. You've got to be careful when you're doing with a big circle, because if you touch it and it sticks in, what will happen, it'll pump out and it will do a big curly whirly around your thing. It's an absolute nightmare. So it's good to get it going. Voila. I actually, obviously I've insulated already, but we didn't stick a bit of the insulation down so we knew where we put it because we had a bit of time. Now we just get the part, hopefully it's not too loose. Lovely. This will bolt on the other side. So inside where I'm gonna have my gas, which is gonna be in here, one thing you definitely need is a drop vent. You can get these little drop vent tubes just to cover it up. You don't need it, but it's nice. Just a couple pounds from eBay. And basically then you just cut, I think it's like a 50mm hole straight through, and you just pop that in. You can screw it down and seal it up at the bottom to prevent rust on the bottom of your van. In many markets, especially if you're thinking of renting it out, first you need to make sure that it's signed off by a gas engineer, which really it should mean that gas engineer does it, because the only way you're going to be certain that they're not just going to replace everything. The second thing to know is that when you put in your gas cylinder, it should be inside a sealed locker. I'm not planning to rent my van out, so I'm not going to put in a gas locker. But again, gas is dangerous, it can kill you. If you're not sure, if you're not confident, don't do it yourself, just pay someone to do the work and be safe. At minimum, it's worth getting someone who's a gas engineer just to check it, to make sure you're not going to kill yourself. And at bare minimum, check every joint with some, basically if you get water with 50-50 washing up liquid soap and you just dab it around every single joint when it's loaded, you'll see tiny bubbles come out and you know you've got a leak. So at absolute minimum, do that. Ideally get it checked by a gas guy, and super ideally the gas guy does your system. So I'm just putting these pipe clips, they're really nicely snug for the gas pipe, just to hold it all in place basically. This one here is going down to the heater. So the back of the Propex, you have an elbow joint. They supply this, and if you go into a rubber tube system, it's really not the ideal system to be using. So this will go in PTFE tape into the back of the heater, and then you have your fit-in. So the one option is you can buy a new elbow piece with the same thread, and then you can put on a pipe adapter. But it's not ideal by any stretch of the imagination because there's no sealing or proper sealing. You're just using the PTFE tape and the thread. So, however, it does come with this compression fitting for the pipe. So what I will do, my plan, I think it's cunning, is I'm going to put the compression fitting on the copper pipe. And if you're using copper pipe, make sure it's been cut properly with a pipe cutter. You can't just hacksaw it off, it will not work. And then I'll put my gas pipe on the end of this and 2 Jubilee clips done up nice and tight. I think this might be the best solution I can think of without being an expert and not knowing what I'm doing, and you know, just get it checked. I'm not a gas fitter, but I think this is going to work for me. Put some PTFE tape on and now it's really solid. Should be a good seal. And now I just need to do the pipe. So inside here there's a little olive, what's called an olive. Essentially the way the compression fitting works is when you do it up really tight, it squeezes in and crushes it. So I've cut down a piece of PTFE tape and I'm going to put it on the olive. If it's too big it just goes all over the ends. I'll put the olive inside nuts, put the pipe in, beautiful job, and then I basically do it up as tight as I can without being crazy about it. I hope you enjoyed that video. We work really hard to make these videos and we really appreciate that you helped us by supporting the content that we make. Don't forget that in the description there are a bunch of links for all the parts which we mentioned in this video, and check them out and it will just make your life a little bit easier when you're searching for things to use for your van. Best of luck for the rest of your conversion. I can't wait to see you guys on the road.